All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about two of my favorite flagships, the Pixel 10 Pro XL versus the Galaxy S25 Ultra here. Two amazing flagships, and I'm very curious to see what you guys think about, both flagships and, which one would you buy personally. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started here. So I think design-wise, I'm actually going to give it to the Pixel. I really like the design this year, not just this year, but even with the 9 Pro. My issue with the S25 Ultra is the camera design hasn't really grown on me yet. At this point, it probably will not. I just don't like the thicker camera rings. And I do kind of like the S24 Ultra's design a little bit more, where it just looked a little bit better to me with the thinner rings, and it was a little bit boxier. This phone is very comfortable, so that is something that I don't miss about the S24 Ultra, is how uncomfortable the phone can be on the edges with those really sharp edges. But yeah, the S25, not a bad looking phone, but I really like everything about the Pixel's design. I love the camera design, and also it's very just nice feeling in the hand, very smooth. It's got the aluminum rails on here, and it's curved really nicely, and it just feels and looks nice. They're both matte finishes as well, both IP68 dust and water resistant. The S25, it does have the titanium build on here, so this phone comes in at 218 grams. The Pixel definitely feels a little bit like chunkier. It comes in at 232 grams, so you can tell the difference pretty much. If you want something a little bit lighter, you go with the S25. But besides that, yeah, designs are great on both. And then also another decision that Samsung made that I'm not a big fan of was they took the Bluetooth out of the S Pen, which it's still, a nice, pen, but it feels really light, which is one thing I don't like about it. And like if you are doing content creation, you used to be able to use the pen and hit the record button and, take pictures from a distance and stuff like that, which was pretty helpful. But now you cannot. But other than that, you can still do digital artwork with it. It's still a good pen for that. But yeah, that pretty much sums up, the hardware between these two phones. All right, so I still personally prefer the S25's display by far. So I'm going to kind of explain why I like this panel. So the S25 Ultra, it's a dynamic LTPO AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 Plus. This is 2600 nits peak brightness at 6.9 inches. And then we have a 92.5 screen to body ratio. So the bezels are a lot thinner than the Pixel 10 Pro XL. And it just gives it a more fuller screen, kind of premium look, in my opinion. It's a 1440p display at 498 for the PPI. You got the Gorilla Glass Armor too. And one of the most slept on features is it has the anti-reflection coating, which is really well, especially outside, so you don't get those reflections. It's a feature that I really like, as you guys could see the difference here. When the light hits the Pixel, it's just pretty harsh. And yeah, I think the S25 Ultra's display, I think it just looks better, and I do like the more boxier shape. So this is where that kind of boxy kind of design comes in play here, because it does kind of remind you of like a TV screen, right? The Pixel also has very good specs: LTPO OLED, 120 Hz HDR10 Plus. This one is even brighter at 3300 nits peak brightness at 6.8 inches, so it's a little bit smaller than the Galaxy. It's 1344 by 2992, 486, and then we have 88% screen to body ratio on here. This has the Gorilla Glass Victus 2. So like I said, the thing that the Pixel is missing is the anti-reflection coating. Again, for the price that they're asking for, $1,000 plus, you want to have the best features and best display, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad display by any means, but I do like having those very thin bezels and the anti-reflection coating makes you kind of feel like you're getting the most out of your money, right? But regardless, they're both very good panels, so I don't actually have a major issue with either screens. All right, so let's talk about the software. We have a 7-year pledge on both of these. We have One UI versus stock Android. We also do have a pretty big difference in the chipsets. So you have the Snapdragon 8 Elite on the S25, 256 gigs and 12 gigs of RAM, UFS 4.0. With the Pixel, we do have the Tensor G5 processor, 256 gigs of internal storage, and 16 gigs of RAM, also UFS 4.0. And both phones are running the latest software, Android 16. When it comes down to like the Pixel or stock Android versus One UI, I would say One UI is a little bit more advanced. Like you have things like Samsung desktop support, good lock, and you can just get really advanced with customization. The multitasking is a little bit more advanced. So I would say the One UI skin, I would say, is for more advanced users, and also it's very easy to navigate. It's not like it's designed poorly or anything like that. It's also very easy, very user friendly if you just want to use it, just like a regular phone. You don't have to go out crazy and stuff. The Pixel is very simple as well too. I love Google's animations, and it's very smooth. They're both very silky smooth. So I would say when it comes to general performance, as you guys can see, the Pixel's benchmark scores are nowhere near the Galaxy's. It's just this is a much more powerful phone. But that's not to say that the Pixel itself is slow by any means, or it lags. Just in general performance, doing regular stuff people do on their phone, it's more than enough power. It's only when we start talking about doing a little bit more advanced things. So video editing and rendering is way quicker on the S25. Let's restart that. It's a lot more quicker. Gaming performance is a lot better. But when it comes to general app loading, man, I keep messing this up. When it comes to general app loading, basically they feel the same. Like the Pixel might be just a little bit behind when it comes to maybe loading up an app. It might be maybe 0.5 seconds delay or something like that. But it's nothing that anyone would actually realize in real life. And the animations are very nice. So I would say if you're a more advanced user, more power user, you'll really like the S25 Ultra. You're going to get all the power in the world. The phone is really good for gaming or some really heavy or multitasking if you want to like have a bunch of stuff in the background. But the Pixel, like I said, it does just as good as a job. So where these phones will differ is more so in the cameras. That's how people are going to decide, because a lot of people aren't gamers or editing on their phone and doing stuff like that. But yeah, it just really depends, guys. But I would say performance in general, the Pixel is really good. As you guys can see, it's very smooth, very fast. And you also do have, similar AI features on here. Of course, we got circle to search. We got the updated Gemini on here as well too. So the features work very well. And even Samsung has their own Galaxy AI features on here as well too. So like I said, I personally think the One UI is for more advanced users. If you really want to take advantage of the power and stuff, if you like things a lot more simple, a lot more simple looking, and just everything is just so Google is everywhere, right? Then you'll really like the Pixel. It's very simple and clean, and I like the animations. It feels, buttery smooth. For example, here, if we load up PUBG, you guys can see we got 120 frames, very smooth. I've never had heating issues or performance problems with the S25, but because we have the Tensor chipset, it's not as well optimized, so we're going to be only playing at 60 frames. And also, it's just going to score, of course, a little bit lower in 3D Mark and, like we saw in Geekbench. This does not have any heating problems either, so I think that's really good. So performance is always pretty consistent on the Pixel. I think for what most people are going to be doing on their phone anyway. So I wouldn't worry about performance really at all on this phone. But yeah, if you're more of a power user, I think this is a good example. If you're somebody who plays games competitively, or you like to run emulators or maybe do like 4K video editing, the rendering and performance is going to be a lot better on the S25. But this is still very good for, just coming in here if you're trying to get a match, Call of Duty, PUBG, or whatever in, then it's perfectly fine. Got these speakers, we're at max volume. So this is extremely tough because they both have really good speakers. The bass is a little bit thumping a little bit harder on the Pixel. It's just a little bit of a beefier bass. Yeah, the kicks are also a lot harder. But I do like the overall sound quality of the S25 Ultra. Like, they both sound extremely good. So I'm actually not gonna pick because they just sound really good, both of them. So I think regardless of either speaker you go with, you'll have a very good speaker. Because I'm really impressed. Like, if you want a more bassier sound, I guess you would go with the Pixel. But the overall sound quality I do like on the S25. It just kind of depends, right? But yeah, so I would just leave it there. The fingerprint scanners, you have an ultrasonic one on both. So let's see if there's actually any difference. Yeah, they feel pretty much the same. Yeah, so I don't think one is, faster than the other. All right, so let's talk about the cameras. So this is a big deciding factor. Some pretty interesting things going on here. The S25 Ultra has a 200 megapixel standard. We also do have a 10 megapixel telephoto with 3 times optical. And then we also have a 50 megapixel periscope telephoto with 5 times optical. And then that'll get us all the way up to our 100 times zoom. We also have a 50 megapixel ultra wide. We can shoot an 8K 24 or 30. And a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. The Pixel has a 50 megapixel standard, 48 megapixel periscope telephoto, and that one is a 5 times optical as well too. And this one, it technically can get up to 100 times zoom, but Google has this kind of AI cloud image processing thing. But I think without that, it's actually like, I think 30 times zoom. So you have 8K 30 on here as well too. 42 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. All right, so let's talk about the battery situation. I'm very curious to see what you guys think about battery life if you have a Pixel. I've been seeing a lot of kind of mixed coverage on the Pixel 10 Pro XL battery life, which it was really confusing when I started using this phone because I think the battery life is great. I think it's actually better than the 9 Pro. Everyone's saying that the 9 Pro XL and this phone has the same battery performance. They say it's not really improved by much, but I think the standby time is a lot better on the 10 Pro XL. Now, as far as screen on time, I'm not a heavy user at all. Like, I use these phones, I rarely like game, if it is like a match or two, but yeah, I'm pretty much like social media, watching videos and stuff like that. But I have the same battery experience on these two phones. So if you're kind of choosing between which one has the best battery life, I would say if you're not like a super heavy user, then it doesn't really matter at all. You're going to get a full day of battery life out of both these phones. But of course, if you're going to be a heavier user, you're going with the S25 Ultra regardless. So the battery specs, you have 5,200 on the Pixel and 5,000 on the S25. They both charge pretty, I'm not going to say slow, but it's not really impressive. They're both at 45 watts. And they both are actually Qi 2, so you can use the, I guess, like MagSafe accessories if you want to call it that. And they do have, or the S25 has wireless and reverse wireless charging, and the Pixel does not have reverse wireless charging. So yeah, so that's pretty much the only difference with these two phones battery wise. But what do you guys think? I mean, I just really love the Pixel's design. I really like stock Android, but you just kind of want that power. Like if they put like the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor in this, I think like Google's already selling these really well, but I think it would cater to that heavy power users and gamers, and then this would be like a really dominant phone. But yeah, I mean, I personally would still pick the S25 Ultra for me personally, but what do you guys think?